Greetings, and salutations to all of my brothers and sisters out there. I hope you're having a wonderful day. The market's been kind of boring and everything this week, and this day is not looking very good. So I wanted to ask you something. I wanted to ask you five somethings. I want to ask you five questions that you can use as kind of a gauge to see if you've traded in your job for your life. I want to ask you five questions and be honest with yourself. You don't have to be honest with me or anybody else, but be honest with yourself if nothing else. Have you traded life in for work? Are you going to be one of those people whenever you're 80 and look back on life regretfully how much you worked? It happens so often. 75% of hospice patients, when surveyed consistently, 75% or more say, I wish I'd never worked so much. They understand. And having worked in healthcare and in that field, you see so many times and so many people say, go for it, go do it, do what you got to do now while you can. Because once you can't, you can't. Time is something you can never buy back, you can never get back, and it will never be renewed. So if you're not planning on retiring early, let me ask you five questions. Let me ask you five things and be honest with yourself with each of the answers. First of all, when somebody asks you what you do, how do you answer that? How do you answer when I would ask you, hey, what do you do? Once upon a time, way back when, I can remember watching these dating shows and different things, and they would start out and they say, hey, well, I'm Jeff, I'm a Scorpio, and I love long walks on the beach, and I love Chardonnay, and I love, seafood and this, and they would go through this long dissertation and never once say what they did for a living. Now, whenever you ask somebody, hey, what do you do? The first thing they do is go into a dissertation about what their job is. I mean, is that really important? Is that really what you do and who you are? Should it not be, hey, I have four grandkids and I love spending time with them. I have two great kids, or I managed to get through life with no kids. I love going on vacations. My dream is, where is you? Where is the you that's buried in behind what your job is? When somebody asks you what you do, start thinking of it in a different term. Start thinking of it as who you are and what you do. And if you can't answer that very well, then maybe, take a look at maybe pulling back some of the work. Maybe look at getting a way that you can get out of working so much. Because if you fully answered that question, hey, I'm Jeff and I'm a chef and I work 65 hours a week and I ignore my children and I've canceled all these things and I never get to go to Little League practice and all these things, do you think the answer would sound even close to the same? You know, um, is your plan for retirement based on others? Is your plan for retirement is, I'm going to work a whole bunch, I'm going to try to save some money in a savings account or something, I got a little bit in a Roth IRA, the pension's going to cover me, I'm hoping Social Security is all good? Is that your plan? Because if that's your plan, it's not the best plan. It's a fine plan, but it's just one that they have got you to believe that you want to have. You need to develop your own plan. What happens if you need, excuse me, a little bit more money? What happens if you want to take the grandkids across the country, across the sea, or Disneyland? My God, that probably costs more than both of those. But for just a moment, what happens if you want to just buy an RV and then tour the country? What happens if you just desire more money? Whenever you're in a situation to where you're getting Social Security and you're getting just your pension or whatever the case may be, you are button hooked by how much money you're going to make. Could it work out? Yeah, if you don't really want anything or no new demands come up, and if you make sure and don't spend too much. But is that really a plan? Shouldn't it be a plan to where we can generate more money? Shouldn't we have a plan to where we can kind of decide how much money we make? Shouldn't we have a plan to where we can go wherever we want and do the things we want? Now, and number three, if you would take away your job, if you would no longer be able to work, God forbid, I'm not cursing anybody here for any, but if for some odd reason that you were never able to work again, what would happen? Who would you be? There are great stories out there. Maybe you've read some of them and hear them about the guy, the manager that worked 80 hours a week and retired and didn't know what to do on Tuesday. What would you do? Who would you be? What would your goals be? Like I myself right now, as you can see, it's kind of a different setting. I'm at visiting friends down close to Virginia Beach. They're great friends, brothers. I've known them for years and years and years. And I'm so happy to get to see them. And I'm so happy that I have the ability to come and see them. I have the time to come and see them. And I also realize that you should go and see friends before we all meet at a funeral home, seeing somebody that's passed away again and we didn't get to say what we wanted to or see them for years. You understand that when you dictate the terms, When you become your own boss and you generate your own revenue and you can control your income, then you can do the things that you want to do. You can do them whenever you want to do them. And just coming down here to see friends is a great blessing in my life. Technically, I'd be shooting this from the beach, but as you see, I'm in the hotel and it's pouring the rain outside. So we get a chance to hang out together for a few minutes. But it's such a blessing for me to come down there, and it truly is for you as well to be able to go and see relatives, friends, and you don't have to be in your 50s, 60s, 70s to worry about somebody passing away before you see them. If you've lived much past 21, you know that people can pass away at a heartbeat. So let's just be honest, go see the people you want to see, go and see them, be with them. Okay, and so let me ask you, in that same kind of vein, number four, do you cancel life events and vacations and things so that you can work? Do you have vacations planned and you cancel them because they need you at work? Do you have things planned and things going on that you just can't get to because, well, I just can't get away? Well, let me tell you, it's a corporation. They'll make it, they'll be fine. And if you think that you always have to be there and you can't pull away, let me explain it to you in these terms. In life, let's say you're going to live to 80 years old, so you have 80 summers, you have 80 birthdays, you have 80 Christmases. And how many of you already crossed off the map? How many are you willing to sacrifice in life to give your life to somebody else all for a dollar? How many things are we willing to just not do before we wake up and realize, oh my God, that company is just stealing my time? No offense to the company. That's what they do. They need to run, they need to operate their business. But we're not a machine. We need to enjoy life. Somewhere along the lines, we've got it twisted that we work and work and work, and then we're allowed to enjoy life. Why in the world do we have to give our life to somebody and then hope that we have some of it left for us when we want to live it? It is absolutely an absurd idea. Stop canceling events and vacations. As a matter of fact, start planning more. You know what? Just because they only give you 1 week of vacation at a place doesn't mean you can't take more. They're just not going to pay you for it. It doesn't mean you're only allowed to have 1 week of life a year. For the love, you're allowed to do whatever you want to do. It's not a prison. You're allowed to do whatever you want. And if they have a problem with it, then go somewhere else and do the same thing. But ultimately, we work to where we don't care if they have a problem with it because we're going to be retired early and enjoying our life. Let's look at the last one here. Number five, what are you willing to sacrifice? What are you willing to sacrifice to have success at the job? So, are you willing to sacrifice 10 more hours a week of your life? Add that up. Are you willing to go ahead and cancel more vacations? Are you willing to go ahead and miss more of your children's birthdays? Your kids only have 18 birthdays basically before they're gone. And if you start crossing them off because you're at work, well, you're just missing them. You're just missing life and it's all sailing right by you. And I'm not trying to make you feel guilty. I'm just trying to really offer a wake up call. We have got to enjoy life while we can. As it's always said, tomorrow is promised to no one. And that's a fact. We could wake up tomorrow with so many different situations going on in our lives. And having worked in healthcare, I see what difference 1 year can make in people's lives. We've got to just understand it's time for us to start living. We've got to change. There's got to be a paradigm shift to where we understand, hey, wait a minute, it's my life. I want to live my life. And, for so many times we are sacrificing time. Absolutely. Will we sacrifice our health? Absolutely. I've seen it. I mean, we countless times. How many times have we both seen it and watched it transpire in life? And, people always say to me is, well, Jeff, I need money. I have to have money. You're absolutely right. We do need money. We have to have it, but we have to use money. We just don't have to have money. And the problem is, so many times we trade our time for money. And what we need to be doing is trading money for more money. So once we do trade time for money, initially, yes. And after about the age of 35 or somewhere in that ballpark, you should begin to understand that you can trade your money for time. So all of a sudden you can start redeeming the time. And how do we do that? How do we do that? What we do is we stop buying liabilities. We stop buying more houses. We stop buying cars and stupid nonsense that we don't need and junk that we don't have to have and more of this and more of that. We stop doing that. I'm not talking about taking away your pleasures. Man, hey, you know what? I'm here visiting friends at the beach. I love enjoying life, but you can't be extravagant with it. You don't need a bigger boat. You don't need all these other things. You don't need more of whatever it is is, you just keep buying. And I'm not saying sacrifice, but instead of putting your money into that, we need to put our money into assets. We need to put our money into things that generate income for us. We need to put our money in the stock market. We need to put our money in mutual funds or in ETFs or T bills or something that's generating money for us so that when we're not working, we're still making money. That's the concept. We need our money making money. And it's, if you couldn't work anymore and if you had to stop working, how long would you last? How long would it be before you no longer could afford to do whatever and had to make some really hard life decisions? But if you get in there and you start buying things like real estate or REITs, if you start buying into the stock market, if you start getting into T bills, you are slowly starting a process that's going to set your ground of freedom right ahead of you. You start keep pouring into it, keep pouring into it. Yes, you know what? Let me tell you, your car is not an asset. Your house that you had to pay all that money for, it's not an asset. Anything that's dragging money out of your pocket and your life is a liability. And until you have assets over liabilities, as the saying goes, until you have assets generating revenue for you, you are not quite there. But you can start. You can start today. Hey, you know what? Just think about it. If I make, I think my expenditures after retirement would only be about $50,000 a year. We'll multiply that by about 25, and that's kind of a number you need to shoot for. Look at what that number will generate into a REIT, into dividend income, into your real estate, if that's what you're into, whatever avenue you choose. How much is X amount of dollars going to generate to make it the number that I want to retire comfortably? And the best thing about it is you can scale all of it. You can have more real estate, you can have more stocks, you can play different plays, you can run different options, but you are in control of your money finally. So think about those questions for just a minute. Think about your life. And let me just, you can start right off. Let me ask you, what do you do? And right there's all you need to know. If you're starting out that plain and that number one question wrong, then we're in a lot of trouble. But hey, we can change it. And that's what this whole channel is about. We're changing it. We're retiring early. We're taking back the money. We're taking back our life, our time. We're taking back our whole existence. And I believe in you. I know we can do it. Hey, if I can do it and others can do it, there's absolutely no reason you can't do it. So let's get to it. Let's get back at it. I thank you for joining me in today. Like and subscribe if you want. I'm hopefully going to get to the beach, and I'll say see you next time here on Trading in Your Future.